So, a couple months ago, I made a video trying to 100% Pikmin 3 without yellow Pikmin. It was truly a tragic video, as I was able to collect every fruit in the game except for one. This f***ing pocked airhead. Every other fruit in the game was doable except for this one. What makes this fruit so hard to get is the fact that the only way to get it is blocked by an electric fence. If you didn't know, the only thing that could damage electric fences in Pikmin 3 are yellow Pikmin. Bomb rots can't damage them, captains can't damage them, nothing can. Only yellows. The way we got around the rest of them in the game was by either bypassing them with our captains and taking other routes, or by using something called a node or waypoint reset, which is basically done by putting fruits in weird places and getting them to reset to a node on the other side of the fence. The problem with this fruit though is that it doesn't do this. The nodes are set up in such a way that no matter where the fruit is, it'll never teleport across the fence. At least, that's what we thought. Because over the past week, I was part of a collaborative effort to finally get this stupid fruit. A collaborative effort that theorycrafted one of the most insane glitches ever seen in a Pikmin game. I'm Dan from Press A, and this is how Pikmin 3 was finally beat 100% without yellows. First things first, let's look in depth at why the popped airhead in the Garden of Hope is impossible to get without yellows. Like I mentioned before, nothing in this game except yellow Pikmin can damage electric fences. It is literally hard-coded in the game to be that way. So before you write in the comments, oh, why didn't you try using bomb rods? Oh, why didn't you punch it with the captain? We did. We tried. It doesn't work. Breaking down the gate is impossible without yellows. What also makes it impossible is the way the waypoint nodes are set up around the gate. If you don't know what a waypoint node is, let me try and explain. Basically, these little circles on the map are what the Pikmin use to know which way to bring enemies and fruits back to the ship. They are also the thing the game uses to respawn fruits at if they were left in a weird place. So if you got a fruit stuck or it clipped out of bounds, it would just respawn at the nearest node on the next morning. Or even if you just left it somewhere on the ground, it wouldn't stay exactly where it was. It would be moved to the closest node on the next day. In the first video, I abused these waypoint nodes to teleport fruits across this gate in the distant tundra. Now, you're probably thinking, why don't you just do the same thing for the gate in the Garden of Hope? Well, it's because you can't. The reason it works in the distant tundra is because the nodes on the inside of the gate are super far away from the gate itself. Usually, if you use Pikmin to bring the fruits this way while the gate is still up, they'll just bring it to this node right here and stop. Since the closest node is this big one in the center, the fruits will always respawn here on the next day. But if you use the cannon beetles to push the fruits by the gate with their snowballs, the closest node will no longer be the big one in the center, but instead the one on the other side of the gate. So if you end the day and come back on the next morning, the fruits will magically teleport across a gate and to the other side. Unfortunately, the way the nodes are set up near the pocked airhead make doing this impossible. As you can see, there are 3 nodes on the side of the gate the airhead is trapped on. This big one, which is right beside where the airhead is found, this one, which is right in the middle of the airhead and the gate, and this one right beside where the gate is. This node right here is what stops fruits from teleporting over the electric fence. It's a little bit further away from the gate than the node on the other side, but since it's on the same side of the gate that you are on, it will always be the closest node to the fruit no matter where you place it. Which means it'll never respawn on the other side because that node is just slightly further away. Which really sucks because you are able to get in there and place the fruit wherever you want. If you throw 2 captains on this rock, then another one on this ledge, you can bring some winds over, dig up the fruit, and pretty much move it wherever you want. But again, it doesn't matter because of these nodes. These nodes make it impossible to get this fruit out from behind the gate. Upon learning this simple fact, I gave up ever trying to get this fruit. Getting the rest of the fruits without yellows was hard enough, but the fact that this fruit was basically impossible to get made me never want to think of the Pikmin 3 yellowless challenge ever again. But then a couple months went by, and this stupid fruit was still on my mind. I just couldn't get over the fact that there was only one fruit we couldn't obtain without yellows. We came up with so many crazy traits to get the other fruits, and for some reason, we couldn't come up with anything to get this one. It just didn't make sense. I knew somehow, some way, this fruit had to be obtainable. I just didn't know how or where to even start. All I knew is that I wanted this fruit. I wanted to close the book on the Pikmin 3 Yellowless Challenge, knowing that every fruit was obtainable. So I did something a little stupid. I posted a bounty on the Pikmin speedrunning Discord. I would pay anyone who could get this fruit without yellows $100. Even though everyone knew it was impossible, I was hoping this bounty would stir up some discussion and maybe bring some new ideas to the table. But unfortunately, that didn't really happen. People either knew this fruit was impossible to get or just didn't really care. So with nowhere left to turn, I contacted someone who wanted this fruit just as badly as I did. Yes, I contacted Pikmin Fan 123, the creator of the Yellowless Pikmin 3 challenge. Pikmin Fan had actually attempted this challenge 2 years prior to me doing it and actually came across the exact same problem. He couldn't get the pocked airhead either. After talking to him for a bit, I realized this fruit had done the same thing to him as it did to me. He was not done with this challenge, and he wanted this fruit. So we got to work. For an hour or two, we chatted over Discord, brainstorming ideas on how we would get this stupid fruit from behind the gate. The first thing we tried was trying to make the winged Pikmin just carry the fruit over the gate or over the nearby walls. Friend of the channel and Pikmin 3 modder Tong actually checked to see if there was any invisible walls around the arena that would physically stop us from doing this. And turns out there were none. So in theory, it should have worked. Unfortunately though, in practice, it didn't really pan out. Even when I used the blowhog to move the airhead in weird ways it should not move, it didn't make a difference. I tried so many things too. I tried using reds to move the blowhog underneath the airhead, hoping to give it enough height to clear the fence. I tried dropping the airhead on the blowhog to see if it would clip out of bounds. I even tried throwing Pikmin from the other side of the fence in hopes they would carry it back the way they came. Nothing worked. The programming around this fence seemed airtight. And not just seemed airtight, it was airtight. You see this node right here, right under the electric fence? Well, that node only becomes active when the fence is broken down. Without this node being active, the Pikmin don't know where to bring the fruit, which is why they just circle around like this when they reach an unbroken gate. Obviously, this was a dead end, but we had just gotten started and we had other ideas that just might work. The next thing we wanted to try was Invincible Pikmin. If you whistle a Pikmin on the exact frame before it dies to an elemental attack like water or fire, you can trick the game into thinking the Pikmin is dead when it's really not. This causes the Pikmin to become invincible, meaning it won't take damage from enemies, water, and yes, even electric gates. There are a few caveats that come with invincible Pikmin, like not being able to whistle or throw them, but thankfully you can dismiss them and charge them, which is all we would need to actually attack the gate. So I went over to the blowhogs, got a couple of invincible winged Pikmin, and tried attacking the gate. To my surprise, it actually worked. They only attacked it for a second or two, but they still did attack it. And since they came right back to me, I could continuously charge them at the gate over and over again until it was broken down. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. I spent the entire day doing this, and I didn't break a single section of the fence. The wings were hitting it, but it didn't seem like they were doing any damage. I was worried that yellow Pikmin would be the only types actually able to damage these gates with attacks. But then I remembered rock Pikmin don't need to attack things to actually damage them. They can be thrown. So I got a couple of invincible rots and walked over to the gate, ready to throw them at it. Then immediately remembered that invincible Pikmin can't be thrown. So I charged them at it, and just like with the wings, the result was the exact same. They did actually stay on the fence and attack it this time, but they still did no damage either way. I actually checked with Tong on this, and yes, Pikmin 3 is hard-coded to only allow yellow Pikmin to damage these gates, which unfortunately meant this was another dead end. So after going back to the drawing board to try and brainstorm some more ideas, Pikmin fan mentioned something really interesting to me. Something about how the nodes worked in this game that I had no idea about. I had always just assumed that fruit would respawn on the nearest node no matter what, which is true until you have more than one fruit. It turns out only one fruit or object can respawn on a node at a time. So if you had a situation like this, where you had two strawberries sitting by a node, one would spawn on this node and the other would spawn on this one. Hearing this is how it worked was absolutely huge. This now meant that we had some way of essentially blocking the node that had been causing us all this trouble. If we could get an object past the gate and sit it on the node giving us all the issues, then place the airhead by the gate, the object sitting on the node would stop the airhead from spawning there and allow it to spawn on this node, finally freeing it from the confines of its area. So we finally had a plan, and it was at this point where we started joking that we were looking more and more like that meme of Charlie Day from Always Sunny, where he has the red string and all the papers, and we weren't wrong. The plan to get this fruit out from behind the gate was getting crazier and crazier by the moment, especially since we had completely disregarded major components of this plan. How in the world were we ever gonna get anything near this gate? And even if we did, once it got over to the other side, how were we gonna get it back out? Well, the first thing we did was to try and answer the getting it out part. And our solution was we just weren't going to do it. If we could get something in there that we didn't have to get back out, like a pellet or something, then we'd be fine. The problem is, almost everything other than fruits in this game despawn once the day ends. Stuff like enemy bodies, pellets, yeah, they both despawn when the day is over. Suit upgrades don't, but the Garden of Hope is one of the only levels in the game that doesn't have any kind of suit upgrade, so that wasn't gonna work either. It seemed like our new plan was already dead in the water before it even had a chance to take off. That was until Pikmin fan remembered a very obscure detail about Pikmin 3. Yes, pellets do despawn at the end of the day, all pellets except ones that are buried in the ground. And there just happens to be a pellet buried in the ground in the second half of the level near this sand gate. So I dug it up, moved it towards the ship, and ended the day to see if this pellet would be the exact thing we needed to finally free the airhead from its eternal prison. And it didn't despawn, but it also didn't work the way we thought it would. Instead of staying around the area that I left it in, the pellet respawned back where I dug it up. So unfortunately, this wasn't gonna work either. And with no idea where to go from here, we just said fuck it, let's try to get some fruits in there and see if this will even work in the first place. And if it does, we can worry about the fruits after. But that brings us to the second part of the equation. Actually getting the fruits where they need to be. You see, unlike in Pikmin 1, Pikmin 3 doesn't really give you the ability to nudge objects. Well, you can, but you have to use the dodge whistle and the fruit has to be small enough to be carried by a single Pikmin. The fruits we had access to that the Pikmin would bring somewhat close enough to the gate were these two strawberries and this lemon, which were all too big to nudge with captains. Also, the Pikmin really didn't bring it that close to the gate either. They would bring them to about right here, which obviously isn't close enough to teleport across the gate. We needed something to move these fruits just a little bit further towards the gate. And thankfully, we had just what we needed sitting right in front of us. Because even though the captains can't nudge ship parts, Bulborbs can. Yeah, taking a page right out of Pikmin 1's playbook, Bulborbs can nudge objects in Pikmin 3. And it's actually way easier than in the first game as well. All you have to do is get the Bulborb to run into the object, and it'll push it along the ground. You don't have to bait out bites or anything. So the first thing I did was bring over two strawberries, push them over by the gate, then end the day to see if our hypothesis was correct. It had worked exactly as we expected. Since there was 2 strawberries on the same node, one of the strawberries was able to spawn there, but the other one had to spawn on the next closest node, which was the one on the other side of the gate. So all I had to do was move the strawberry back again, then move the lemon there as well, which would spawn one of them on the other side. I wanted 2 fruits over there to take up these 2 nodes, so there was no chance the airhead wouldn't cross over the gate. So that's what I did. I got both strawberries over the fence, moved the airhead as close to the gate as I could, end of the day, and hoped for some magic. And it didn't work. The strawberry, not the airhead, spawned on the other side of the gate. But I wasn't discouraged. I knew it was only a matter of time before the airhead went over instead of the strawberries. I just had to keep trying, and I would eventually get lucky. Except, I didn't. No matter what I tried or how I arranged the fruits, the strawberries would always be taken over the airhead. I thought it was maybe because the nodes would prioritize whatever fruit was closest to them, so I let the strawberries spawn on the nodes, then place the airhead right between them, which meant the strawberries were as close to the nodes as they could be, and the closest one to the airhead was outside the gate. And even this didn't work. I tried putting the airhead first, that didn't work. I tried putting the airhead last, and that just spawned both strawberries outside the gate. I even tried bunching them all together and praying to Jesus, but nothing worked. No matter what I did, the strawberries, not the airhead, spawned outside. It was becoming very clear to me that we were gonna need some more help. The logic of this plan was sound, but it was just taking me too long to try all the variations needed to finally make it work. Each attempt took me around 10 to 15 minutes to complete. I had to make throws to the ledge, which I often failed, then had to dig up the airhead with the wings, which took forever, and finally I had to position the fruit in a way I wanted to test out. All of this was way too slow. If we wanted to get this thing out of here, we were gonna need a lot more attempts. So I put up the same bounty I did on the Pikmin Discord on our own Discord and posted it to YouTube as well. And after a couple hours of waiting, I got a response from someone who was about to play a major role in this story.
It's going to be all right. Time to tip the scale!
I had seen Jynx around our Discord before, but I had no idea how well they actually knew Pikmin 3. A lot of people from the Pikmin speedrunning Discord had tried to get this fruit before. People who know way more about the game than even me. But none of them had ever been able to do it. To say that I was skeptical that this random person on my Discord would be able to do it when so many more before them had tried and failed is an understatement. But regardless, I was more than happy for some extra help. Maybe Jynx would be the one to get the lucky roll and have the airhead spawn over the gate. So they messaged me saying they were going to start doing some attempts. I booted up my game and started doing some attempts as well. And about 30 minutes later, I got this message in my Discord. After one single attempt, Jynx had gotten the fruit out from behind the gate. How the fuck was this even possible? I didn't even mention it before, but I had already spent 6 to 7 hours trying to do this, and Jynx comes along and gets it on the first try. I needed to know how. I had to see what they did. So I asked them to send a video over so I could break down exactly what they did differently and make sense of all this. They agreed. They just needed 10 minutes to render it and upload it to YouTube. Then the render time shot up to 30 minutes. Then disaster. Their laptop had crashed while the video was rendering. Thankfully, none of the footage was lost, so I suggested they upload it to Google Drive and share it to me that way. But they said their Wi-Fi was complete garbage and it would be a miracle if it was uploaded. So they tried one more time uploading to YouTube and it got fucking corrupted again. After 6 months, I was so close to finally seeing how this stupid fruit could be obtained without yellows, and it seemed like the universe just didn't want me to see it. Like it was playing some hilarious practical joke on me. So I suggested one more time that they try uploading to Google Drive, and after waiting 40 agonizing minutes, I clicked on the video and it just worked. What I had just seen made literally no sense to me. Almost nothing in Jynx's video was lining up with what I experienced in my own game. First, they left 2 strawberries and the lemon by the fence, which for some reason caused 2 to go over and 1 to spawn by this bulb orb. The 2 fruits going over made sense, but why did this strawberry spawn by the bulb orb when there was a node right in front of the gate? It didn't make sense. Second, what also didn't make sense was the fact that when Jynx left this strawberry by the gate, on the next day, it teleported over the fence. If we look at our node map again, you can see there's a node right in front of the gate. So a single strawberry should never be able to spawn on the other side, it should always just spawn on this node right here. Finally, when they actually got the airhead over, it didn't spawn in front of the gate. It spawned by the fucking sand wall. What the hell was going on? Anytime I tried this, something always spawned in front of the gate. But on Jynx's first try, nothing did. In fact, stuff spawned further away than I ever thought was possible. It's almost like the node didn't exist in their game or something. It was like Jynx was playing by different rules than me, which is because they were. While I was reviewing this footage, I noticed that Jynx was playing on the Wii U version. I could tell this because the Wii U version is missing the cope pad and hints HUD elements that the Switch version has. When I realized this, I immediately thought, wait, what if the Wii U version has different nodes? So I got Pikmin 3 hacker extraordinaire Tong back on the case and asked him if he could get me a node map for Wii U. And what he came back with confused me even more. The node was fucking there. It still existed on Wii U, which meant none of this made sense at all. I was about to give up and put all of this behind me. But then I noticed something. The node in front of the gate was still there, but the gate node itself was missing. Then it hit me. The node in front of the gate isn't the same node that's on the Switch version. You can even see here that they are in slightly different spots. The node we were looking at was the gate node, just moved very slightly to the left, which meant this node wouldn't be active as long as the gate was still intact. This is why Jynx was able to get the strawberry in there when they left it by the gate by itself. Since there's no node there, it had no choice but to go over the gate. This is also why no fruit ever spawned in front of the gate when they were trying to get fruits out. The only thing it didn't explain was why the airhead was able to escape instead of the strawberries. Something I was never able to achieve, but it didn't matter. The fruit was out. The only thing we had left to do was to somehow get the other fruits out as well that we had just put in there. Which, yeah, turns out this is impossible. To get fruits out from behind the gate, we have to use other fruits. But if we use other fruits, those fruits then become stuck and we have to use different fruits to get those ones out. We would just be stuck in an endless cycle of getting fruits behind the gate to get the previous ones out. We needed something that we could put behind the gate that we didn't have to get back out. But like I mentioned before, there was nothing like that in the Garden of Hope. The 5 pellets always respawned back where they came from, and there was no suit upgrades to speak of anywhere in the level. The only thing that would respawn near the place we left it was fruits, and we needed all the fruits to 100% the game. It was looking like getting this fruit out legitimately was not gonna happen. Me, Pikmin fan, and Jynx were all losing hope. It was looking like this fruit would stay stuck behind this stupid gate forever. That was until the final character in our story made their appearance. In an act of desperation, I contacted the person who maybe knows more about Pikmin 3 than anyone else in the world. I explained our situation, and what they came back with was truly incredible. If you didn't catch what happened there, Louis and the Wayward Moon were both on the ground, but the Myrclops was still alive. If you didn't know, the Myrclops drops these two things when you kill it. But he didn't kill it. So what the hell was going on here? Well, Drought Ender explained to me that by killing the Marclops on the last frame before the end of the day, you can basically make the game think it died without it actually dying. So when you come back the next day, Louis will be on the ground like you killed him, but the Marclops will still be alive with 1 HP. But the real magic happens when you kill the Marclops a second time, because upon killing it twice, you get a second Louis. Why is this important, you may ask? Why do we care if we can get 2 Louis? Well, it turns out you only need to collect one of them to progress the story, which means we can do whatever we want with the second one. Which means we found our respawnable object that we can get stuck behind the gate and not have to care about. The only problem was, just like with the strawberries, we were gonna need 2 over the fence, which meant we would need 3 Louis in total. The question was, could this glitch be performed more than once? Could you get 3 Louis? Could you get 5 Louis? Could you get an infinite amount of Louis from doing this glitch? Nobody knew. The only thing we had left to do was to try it and see.
Reproduced it. You just have to end day the frame it takes its final hit. No weird other room stuff. You've heard of Double Charlie. Now get ready for Triple Louis. Let the grapefruit heist commence.
Ender, what the fuck?
I hate yellow Pikmin. Perfect. Exactly as planned.
This is so much more hype watching it happen live than seeing it on a YouTube video.
We're trying again with more ammo.
I wonder if they've made progress with that Pikmin 3 challenge? Looks inside. 5 Louis. Understandable, have a nice day.
It turns out the Louise cannot push the popped airhead out. Fuck.
So if you have no idea what just happened there, let me try and break it down. First thing Drought did was prove that the glitch was reproducible by getting 2 Louis. Then he did it again to spawn a third. Then, by using a mix of invincible Pikmin manipulation and the bulb orb, he was able to push them over by the electric gate. Just like with the strawberries, 2 of them spawned on the other side in the morning. Unfortunately though, this didn't work, so he tried it again with 5. At this point, Drought came to the conclusion, just like I did with the strawberries, that Louis can't get the airhead out from behind the gate. For whatever reason, every time he tried, the Louis would spawn on the other side and not the airhead. This is exactly what kept happening to me with the strawberries. The only question was, why? Why did this keep happening? Why were the strawberries and the Louis consistently not effective at moving the airhead? It was a question that we had no answer to, until we looked back at Jynx's attempt where he actually got the airhead out. He did have a bunch of strawberries beside the airhead, but he also had the lemon there as well. What if the size or the weight of the fruit was what gave it priority when spawning to the nearest node? What would happen if we got a really big fruit in there and ended the day? Nobody knew, but we did have the perfect fruit to try it with, because, like I mentioned before, Marclops doesn't only drop Louis, it drops the Wayward Moon as well. Unfortunately, you can't duplicate the moon like you can with Louis, but every time you kill the Marclops, it respawns back in the boss arena, no matter where it was on the map. So we could potentially get the moon behind the gate, end the day, get the airhead out, then kill the Marclops, which would warp the moon back to the boss arena, allowing us to get it and 100% Pikmin 3 without yellows in the process. However, there was one thing that Drought Ender had to overcome. The method he used to move Louis to the gate only worked with small objects. The Wayward Moon was not a small object. It was really big. So he had to get a little creative. Using winged Pikmin, he was able to drop the moon off by the spawn point for the blue onion. Then he brought a bunch of other fruits from around the level and placed them beside the moon in an effort to force the moon to spawn past this wall, which happens to be behind the electric fence. It was a long shot, but it was the only way to get the moon behind the gate. So with nothing left to do, he ended the day and prayed to the Pikmin gods that the moon would spawn behind the electric fence. Somehow, out of all the fruits left in the water, the game chose the Wayward Moon and spawned it behind the gate. Now, all Drought had to do was move both fruits towards the gate and use the moon to teleport the airhead across in the morning. Yeah, it didn't work. It was the same situation as the strawberries and the Louis. No matter how many times he tried, the airhead would always stay stuck behind the gate. Our hypothesis about the weight or size determining the spawn priority of the fruit was wrong. There was some kind of priority the game gave to objects, but we had no idea what it was. We did tests to see if it was alphabetical order, we did tests to see if it was based on which fruit spawned first in the level, we even did tests to see if it was based on the ID number for each object. The priority was based on none of them. To make things even more confusing, Jynx tried getting the airhead out with just 2 strawberries on the Wii U version, and it worked. So clearly the lemon was not needed, and clearly something very different was going on in the Wii U version. Now, you're probably all screaming at the screen right now, saying, why don't you guys get a bunch of Louis on the Wii U and get that stupid fruit out of there? Well, it's because the Meyerclops revive glitch doesn't work on the Wii U. Jynx tried for 3 hours replicating the glitch, and it never worked once. And unfortunately, this is where our story ends. The fruit is caught in this weird state where it can be removed from its prison on the Wii U version, but there's nothing useless to do it with. And on the Switch version, we do have useless things to do it with, but we can't remove it from its prison. So I guess the bottom line is, you can obtain every fruit in the game without yellow Pikmin, you just can't do it on the same save file. Which is a little bit shitty since it feels like this whole thing is so close to working, but for right now, this is the best we got. I do believe one day this fruit will be obtained legitimately, but today is unfortunately not that day. I want to give a huge shout out to Pikmin fan 123, Tong, Jynx, and Drought Ender for helping out on this video. The ideas they came up with and what they did to even take it this far was absolutely insane. Waking up at 2 in the morning and seeing Drought had spawned 5 Louis to break a fruit out from behind an electric fence was honestly one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I also should mention that even though Jynx did get the fruit out, they wanted no part in the bounty I offered. None of them did. Everyone was just doing it because they love these games. They wanted to see some cool shit happen in a game they love, and honestly, I respect the hell out of that. But yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this story of how Pikmin 3 was kind of, sort of, beat 100% without yellow Pikmin. It was a ton of fun being a part of it, and I hope one day this fruit will finally be liberated from its prison for real. This video was made possible through the support of our amazing patrons. I want to give a special shout out to Rebecca Lyons, Burb, Puddles Megan, Nice Gamer Musics, Serena Bliss, TXCS_14. Blue Pikmin is the best Pikmin, and if you say otherwise, then Louie will eat your soul. Also, this is a completely real name. Young Smokey VP $17, Young Smokey VP 17, Clone Trooper Wheeler, Real Backfish, Charm City Gamer, David Baden, and Yellow Pikmin are the best.